Hey there. Ready to step up your natural gardening game? Today we're going to dive into some advanced techniques, stuff that goes way beyond just the basics.
Yeah, we're talking permaculture, biointensive gardening, even biodynamic gardening.
Whoa, those sound pretty intense, like something you need a master's degree for.
No, really, it's all about gardening with nature, not against it. Think of it as natural gardening 2.0. It's all about creating gardens that are super productive and good for the planet.
So it's like my garden takes care of itself. I am so in. But first, what do those terms even mean?
Let's break them down. Permaculture first. It's basically a design system. It takes inspiration from nature, natural ecosystems. And from that, we can create sustainable environments for humans.
It's bigger than just gardening.
Oh, yeah. You can apply permaculture principles to all sorts of stuff. Architecture, even energy, community design, lots of things. But in our deep dive today, we're focusing on how permaculture can transform your garden.
Okay, but how do I actually do that? Permaculture sounds kind of abstract.
Well, one of the key principles is observe and interact. So before you plant anything, you got to spend time observing your space. Like, what's the soil type? Which way is the wind blowing? How much sun is it getting? Really get to know your site.
So it's kind of like detective work for your garden. I like it.
Exactly. And once you've got all that info, you can start to design a garden that works with your site, not against it.
So give me an example. What does that look like in an actual garden?
Okay, say you have a spot in your garden that gets tons of sun in the afternoon. Instead of trying to fight it, work with it. Plant stuff that likes those conditions, like drought-tolerant herbs or tomatoes. They love sun.
That makes sense. So I'm picking the right plant for the place, not forcing a plant to grow where it doesn't want to grow.
You got it. It's about working smarter, not harder. That's what permaculture is all about, coming up with smart solutions that are good for you and the environment.
Oh, and I remember reading about catch and store energy. What does that mean for gardening?
It's about being resourceful. Think about rainwater harvesting. Instead of letting all that rain run off your roof, collect it. You can use it to water your garden. So you're capturing and storing energy from nature.
Like a squirrel storing nuts for winter. Makes sense.
Exactly. And you can catch and store energy in other ways, too. Plant some trees to shade your house in the summer, but they lose their leaves in the winter so the sun can warm things up. Build a stone wall that absorbs heat during the day and releases it at night.
So you're working with what nature already provides. So I can see how permaculture makes gardening more sustainable and efficient. But what about actually growing food?
That's where the principle obtain a yield comes in. And it's not just about food, it's about anything your garden can provide. Beauty, medicine, wildlife habitat, clean air, even just a place to relax.
So it's a multi-purpose garden,
Yeah.
more than just pretty flowers.
Exactly. Productive ecosystems that help both humans and the environment. But before we go on to the next topic, we got to talk about another key part of permaculture. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback.
Ooh, that sounds pretty philosophical.
It's about realizing that nature has its own systems, and we need to pay attention and work within those systems.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. So you've got an aphid problem. Instead of just grabbing some pesticide, why not introduce some ladybugs? They eat aphids naturally, so you're letting nature regulate itself.
That's so smart. I'm not controlling things, but just letting nature do its thing.
You got it. You watch what happens, make little adjustments here and there, and your garden becomes more balanced, more resilient.
Permaculture is really making me rethink my entire approach to gardening. It's way more than just chucking some seeds in the ground.
It really is a whole new way of thinking about your relationship with nature. And speaking of new ways to think about things, are you ready to talk about a gardening technique that's a little more hands-on?
Hit me with it. I'm ready to dig in, literally. What about biointensive gardening?
Biointensive. It's all about getting the most out of your space, especially small spaces.
Oh, perfect. For people like me with a little patio garden, or anyone who doesn't have tons of room.
That's right. And it's not just about cramming plants in, it's about building up your soil, getting it really healthy so you get amazing food without using a bunch of chemicals and stuff.
Healthy soil, that's the key, isn't it? To any kind of garden.
You know it. And with biointensive, we take soil building to a whole other level.
I'm hooked. Tell me more. What's step one?
It all starts with prepping the soil. And I mean really prepping it, double digging. You loosen up the soil like 2 feet deep.
2 feet. Whoa. That sounds intense. Why so deep?
Because you're creating this amazing environment for roots to grow. When the soil's loose and airy, the roots can really stretch out and get all the good stuff they need.
It's like I'm building this deluxe underground apartment for my plants.
That's a great way to put it. And just like a good apartment, a bio-intensive garden is laid out super efficiently.
So once the soil is all prepped and ready, what's next? Just stuff it full of plants.
Not exactly. It's strategic stuffing. We use companion planting. Put certain plants together because they help each other out.
Like the classic three sisters, corn, beans, and squash.
Yep. Each plant has a job, like the corn. It's the bean poles. Beans add nitrogen to the soil, and the squash keeps the weeds down because it shades the ground.
They all got to work together,
Yeah,
like a little team down there.
exactly. And when you choose the right plant buddies, it can even make your veggies taste better, help with pollination, and keep the bad bugs away.
This is like plant chess. I love it. But with all those plants so close together, are they going to run out of food? I mean, nutrients.
That's where composting comes in.
Oh, composting, my favorite. But how does it work in a bio-intensive garden?
It's crucial. Composting feeds your soil, gives it all the nutrients it needs. And we're not talking wimpy compost. We're making super compost.
Oh, we're keeping things in the garden. Yard waste, kitchen scraps, it all goes back in.
You got it. It's a self-sustaining system. You're not buying a bunch of fertilizer. You're not throwing stuff away. It's a win-win.
So with bio-intensive gardening, we get big yields in small spaces. Plus, we're building crazy healthy soil. And we're using companion planting. And lots of compost. If you want to grow a lot of food in a little bit of space, this is the way to go.
It's a super efficient way to garden. Healthy soil and smart planning equals tons of food. Okay, now, before we move on, there's one more technique we got to talk about. Biodynamic gardening. This one's a little more mysterious.
Ooh, yeah. Biodynamic gardening, it seems kind of, mystical.
It does have a bit of a reputation, but it's really about seeing your garden as a whole living thing. Everything's connected.
So it's like super holistic.
That's a good way to put it. And biodynamic gardening goes even deeper. It's got a spiritual side, a philosophical side. It's about how everything's connected.
Okay, I'm listening. What kinds of things do biodynamic gardeners do?
One of the most well-known things is that they use these special compost preparations. They're made with herbs and minerals.
Compost preparations, that sounds kind of cool. Like what?
Well, the most famous one is called Preparation 500. You take cow manure, put it in a cow horn, and bury it for months.
Hold up. Cow manure in a cow horn.
Yeah.
Buried. That's different.
I know, right? Biodynamic folks believe this whole process, it's like it captures energy from the cosmos, and that energy goes into the manure and then makes the soil super fertile, helps the plants grow better.
Energy from the cosmos. I am learning so much today. Okay, so you add this special Preparation 500 to your compost.
Just a teeny tiny bit. It's supposed to get all the little microbes in the soil working better, create this balanced, healthy environment down there.
It's like magic compost. And what else?
Another big thing in biodynamic gardening is planting by the moon.
Wait, moon gardening. Like I got to be out there planting by the light of the full moon or something.
No, not quite. But you do pay attention to the moon's phases. The idea is that the moon affects how plants grow. It's gravity, it pulls on the sap in the plants.
Yeah.
So if you plant and harvest at certain times, your plants will be healthier and tastier.
So we're tuning into the rhythms of the universe.
Exactly. Working with the natural energies of the earth and the sky and everything.
Okay, biodynamic gardening is definitely pushing me out of my comfort zone. It's a whole different way of thinking. I love the idea of working with the cosmos to make my gardening better, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of this. I got to say, this is fascinating stuff. But all this cosmic energy and moon cycles, it's like I'm a witch making potions in my garden.
I know what you mean. It does seem kind of out there. But, more and more people are trying these biodynamic techniques. And a lot of them say their plants are healthier and they're getting bigger harvests.
Well, I'm always up for trying new things, especially if it'll help my garden. And even if I don't go full-on biodynamic, I like that idea of thinking about my garden as like one big living thing.
That's what ties all these techniques together, don't you think? Permaculture, bio-intensive, biodynamic. It's all about working with nature to create a garden that's in balance.
Yeah, that's what I love about this stuff. It's more than just growing vegetables, It's
Right.
about getting in tune with nature.
It's good for the garden and good for you. Gardening is so grounding, helps you connect with nature's rhythms. It's really peaceful.
Definitely. I love that feeling of getting my hands dirty, taking care of something and watching it grow. It's like we're all connected to something bigger.
And when you work with nature, your garden comes alive. Literally.
Right.
You get all these good bugs, birds, all kinds of cool critters. You're making a space for them to thrive.
It's like a little oasis in my backyard. And Gardening doesn't have to be a solo thing.
Oh, absolutely not. There's a whole community out there. Gardeners love to share their knowledge.
Right.
And their extra zucchini.
I've learned so much from other gardeners. Everything from keeping squirrels out of my tomatoes to how to prune my roses right.
That kind of stuff is super helpful, but it's more than that. It's a real community. People from all walks of life, all connected by this love of gardening.
I love that. Gardening can really bring people together.
It's so true. In a world that feels kind of disconnected sometimes, gardening gets us back to nature and to each other.
And I think it's important to remember these techniques, these gardens we're creating, they're not just for us.
Exactly. They're good for wildlife, pollinators, and they even help fight climate change.
So we're growing food, getting closer to nature, and helping the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, what's not to love?
Right. And the more we talk about these techniques, the more people will try them out. It's like a ripple effect.
I love that. Oh, okay. I am seriously inspired to go try all this stuff out. I'm going to play with some permaculture, do some biointensive soil building, and maybe even give that moon gardening thing a whirl.
That's awesome. Just remember, gardening's a journey. Have fun with it. Enjoy the process. There's going to be challenges, but the rewards are so worth it.
You said it. Well, I think we covered a ton of ground today.
Yeah.
From hardcore double digging to those kind of mystical biodynamic preparations.
We did. Hopefully everyone listening is excited to try some of these things out and see what happens.
Yeah. I bet they're going to be amazed by what their gardens can do. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Happy gardening, everyone.